Welcome back to Blam Blam Truckers. You're here with Bees, and we're once again delving into the High Kings D6 unofficial D6 Transformers RPG. So here we go. Here we go, loop and de loop. Here we go, loop and de la. We are in Chapter 2. This is Part 2 of Chapter 2. Page 20 for those of you following along at home, though I don't know how you'd get a copy of this if you haven't downloaded it already, in which case, why are you walking through my walkthrough if you already have a copy for yourself? All right, they're going to go into skills here. And again, we're in Chapter 2. We're still dealing with the basics of character creation, and there's a lot to do something that takes me about 2 minutes now that I'm familiar with it. That's not really fair. It takes about 8 minutes. Less than 10. 2 minutes less than 10. So to start off, he marks skills with asterisks if they're opposed by a dodge, and he marks skills with an, I don't know, a caret, an up arrow, if they're opposed by the opposed melee roll, the target. So that's stuff like melee combat or brawling combat. Anyway, the two melee combat skills are confusing. I need some clarification. One can determine, basically, here's what it comes down to before we get into all of his stuff. If you are jumping out of the way of an attack, you're dodging. Even if you're jerking out of the way of the attack, it's a dodge. If you're trying to block it or riposte or, meet it with, your hands or a sword or a shield, then it is a melee combat, a brawling combat. Parry, I believe the skill in West End Games D6 version 2 and forward is called parry. In version 1, they just use melee combat. I take that. So in 1.0, that's how I do it. I take that rule from 1.0. So yeah. So if you're in a fist fight, like a boxing match, if you're in the upcoming boxing match between Mike Tyson and Jake something or other. Is it Jake? Logan. Jake Logan. No. Jake Paul. It's Logan Paul and Jake Paul. That's what it is. If you were part of that upcoming boxing match, you would, if you're blocking a hit, you would roll melee combat to block it. If you are dodging it, if you're actually getting away from the hit, you would roll your dodge skill. That's the difference. So there we go. How do advanced skills work? Poorly at best. So the idea of an advanced skill is a skill that can't, you don't know it unless you have it. And they advance at double the rate in experience points. So to take medicine 1D takes 2 experience points to raise to 1D plus 2. If you had medicine at 5D, it would take 10 EXP points or character points to raise it to 5D plus 1. That's basically the rule, plus you need to train it, and you need a prerequisite skill. That's really what's going on here. The classic example from West End Games, Star Wars D6, is, of course, medicine, which is an advanced skill off of first aid. He played a lot, THQ played a lot with adding in new advanced skills, and there's only 3 advanced skills in all of West End Games. There's only 3 official ones: engineering, medicine, and martial arts. Martial arts is very, very poorly defined. It's really not defined. It's only mentioned in passing. Medicine, it makes a lot of sense. There's things basically it makes you a doctor as opposed to a corpsman or a medic. A doctor can do surgery, all sorts of surgeries. A corpsman can't. In Star Wars, a doctor can work a Bacta tank. A corpsman can't. So when we come across these skills, I'm going to tell you how I modify them and use them in my games. But yeah, engineering has an entire chapter of a book dedicated to it, and outposts and strongholds in West End Games D6 in Star Wars. Outposts and strongholds. It took me years to get a copy of that book. Years before the internet became what it is and its repository of PDFs all over the place. So I have a physical copy of almost all of the Star Wars books for D6. It took me That was a long collection to complete. I think I'm missing a couple of adventure journals, but that's it. Anyway, uh, basically, what engineering does is it allows you to build things, whether it's a stronghold or designing your own blasters or designing your own ships in Star Wars. That's what engineering is for. So it's an interesting skill. I like it a lot, but it's an advanced skill. It takes longer to develop it. Basically, think of it as like I'd almost put all sorts of things in advanced skills in human life, but you don't need it. And you don't need it in the game for most things. I don't like creating a lot of new advanced skills. I like the fact that he created robotics. I don't like the prerequisites he set. Uh, Engineering isn't really all that useful in this game, in most games, because you're not building a lot unless you're playing a character who builds things. So yeah, it's a nice feature, advanced skills, that allows some not advanced, different kind of characters. Having a doctor on the battlefield is useful, but yeah. So what you really need to know going forward is engineering allows you to build your own creations. Robotics is medicine, is basically a doctor for Cybertronians, for your Transformers. Medicine is a doctor for fleshlings or humans. I don't use celestial mechanics or astrogation as advanced skills. Um, I treat them as normal skills. He doesn't, and that's fine. Um, I like a faster gameplay. And martial arts, he has an entire chapter on martial arts, and frankly, it is a showcase of THK's brilliance, because when we get to it, I think it's the best explanation of martial arts I've seen. I've expanded upon it. I have a little file on what I do with it. It's not a very big or in-depth file. A lot of stuff is still in my head. I haven't written it down because I'm not certain. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. So advanced skills are basically skills that you can't do without a heroic roll in the prerequisite base skill. So if you want to do open heart surgery and you don't have medicine, you're going to have a hard time getting that done. If you want to do a 1-inch punch and you don't have martial arts, you haven't been trained in the 1-inch punch. You don't know how to do it. So you would need to roll a heroic roll with brawling. That's basically what it comes down to. It takes you to the next level for your skills. And for most skills, there's not a next level to get to. That's fine. The advanced skills are, I'm not saying they're not necessary for the game. I'm saying they're not used very often. But they do need to be talked about. They do need to be covered. And it makes sense from a, sense of the game sort of thing. Moving on. Again, you can read through everything he writes. That's why I'm taking time. You have time to read through it, pause it, and read the entire page. That's why we're going through this. All right. And your advanced skills can be, applied backwards. So if you're in a first aid situation and you have medicine, you may be able to add your medicine dice into the first aid situation, which means if somebody rolls their ankle, you might be a doctor would do a better, wouldn't even be a cast splint than a normal person would. Or even sometimes they do better than the nurse, depending. Sometimes the nurse is going to have a higher first aid, but the doctor is going to bring in that advanced medicine. Maybe the nurse will do a better job. I don't know. It works out pretty well, though, honestly, with medicine. Buse and I have only a couple of times used the whole martial arts thing. Engineering has not come up very often in our games. When it does, though, it's a lot of fun. Well, we are kind of building nerds. So we're going to go into what he put out for dex skills. Ranged conventional weapons. These are firearms. I would have just said firearms. Except he also throws in here flamethrowers. That's fine with me, but I would have just said firearms and been done with it. Ranged ancient weapons. These are non-firearms. Bows, crossbows, slings. Um, there's a few others. This is not ballista or artillery of any way, shape, or form, unless it's a handheld ballista, which was called an arbalist, which was not actually. The terminology was not standardized at the time because everybody spoke a different language, and there was no internet, let alone radio or any other kind of communication that allows us to standardize language, which leads to an interesting digression. I honestly think the internet is going to stabilize English for a longer period of time than it's ever been stabilized before, because I have conversations. I like being able to have conversations with people in all over the world in this one language. So if we change it too much, you're not able to do that anymore. So while we've seen a rise of different kinds of slang. Once we cut through this slang, base English has stayed the same a remarkable amount of time over the last 20 years that we've had the internet. 20, 30 years? 90 something. Yeah, 30 odd years, 30 plus years, pushing 40. Anyway, ranged energy weapons. These are basically your blasters from Star Wars. Plasma, lasers, ion weapons, all that stuff. Melee weapons. So these are all your handheld weapons. Yeah, these are probably the four skills under dexterity, the four combat skills under dexterity you guys are going to be using the most. Integrated weapon systems ranged. I would not make this a separate, like in my games, I don't make this a separate weapon. I don't make integrated weapons a separate skill. I don't make integrated weapons or of either type a separate skill. Either you're good with a knife or a sword, whether it's part of you, or you're not. Either you're good with firearms or energy weapons, or you're not. Where do you put railguns under here? That's the question that came up. Is a railgun a ranged conventional weapon, or is it an energy weapon? That's a tough call. Personally, I would think it was an energy weapon because it doesn't have any recoil, and energy weapons generally have no recoil. Generally. But that is something you need to consider while shooting. I wouldn't have minded just making it one skill ranged weapons, but my players have actually objected to that. So basically anything that's rifle or gun shaped and fires in the same fashion, I would make it one skill. If I was my players object to that. But guns and guns and lasers are different. Okay. That's fine. If you're happy with that, we'll keep it as two separate skills. Again, I would not add these skills in. It's your game. You play it the way you want to. Remember, as long as you're having fun, you're doing it right. Integrated weapon systems ranged and melee, you guys can pause this and read through if you want to. Heavy weapons. This is where I would have put fire flamethrowers. Skill reflexes use accuracy with heavy weapons. Human characters are anti-tank weapons, basically, or anti-vehicle weapons. And crew service machine guns, which are Gatling guns, by the way. Rocket launchers and most mountain weaponry. You're getting into vehicle weapons when you get into mounted weaponry. But anyway, this is still not artillery. This is rocket launchers, Gatling guns, heavy machine guns, all that stuff. Yeah. Not much more to it than that. Thrown weapons. This is basically everything but grenades. Daggers, knives, rocks. Basically, I just call it throw. I use it whether you're throwing a ball or throwing a knife or dagger, boomerang, whatever. Grenade. I don't know why West End Games made this a separate skill from throw, but they did. Yeah. There's a lot of grenades. I personally, I just use throw. I don't use grenade as a separate skill. This has annoyed my players once in a while who, they're like, but I put points into grenade. I'll put them in throw then. Oh, I wanted a grenade skill. All right, fine. We'll have a separate grenade skill. Whatever works. As long as you guys, I don't care. You guys are having fun, have fun. I just use one skill throw. You do what works for you. have never thrown a grenade, but I've thrown a lot of M80s or M15s, firecrackers. I've thrown firecrackers, and it throws in water balloons. They throw the same, in my opinion. You just got to know to be out of the range of the blast. He's throwing claymore mines. That's not ideal. Um, yeah, I just use throw. You guys do whatever works for you. Dodge. This is the skill I recommend everyone take. I think the only character I have never taken dodge on in all my years of playing is Doc in my Transformers story, the Cybertronian Misadventure. Doc may be the only character I didn't take dodge with. Um, you're in ranged combat. This is your one defensive skill against ranged attacks. That's it. You get out of the way of the shot. Um, Either that or you get behind and you get behind cover. If you now with Transformers it's different because you have shields and force shields and stuff like that. In Star Wars, the only way to block ranged combat was if you had a ridiculously high block skill or you had lightsaber combat and you were force sensitive. Yeah. So you're going to want this in a range-based game. This is not nearly as important. I've got a medieval fantasy style world that I created under D6. This isn't as important there because ranged combat is far less common in before the advent of it's not even gunpowder. It's basically semi-automatic weapons and rifles. It's still like a musket reloads slower than and has less range and does less damage than a longbow. But muskets had a higher force multiplier. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time on force multipliers, but basically there's something in combat that increases how scary your effectiveness in battle. That's what a force multiplier is. And muskets pulled that off by frightening and making the enemy stop attacking you because it was so loud and scary. That is a very real thing. Don't think it's not. So yeah, the longbow was better until the invention of the rifle. Once the rifle was created, that's all we did was rifle the barrel of scratch the inside of a barrel to make the as the bullet goes through it makes the bullet turn. And eventually we went from round bullets to the modern more cylindrical shape with a point on it, which are more aerodynamic. But yeah, once accuracy was improved, that's when guns, ranged weaponry, really became the king of the battlefield. And that's really not until we still had cavalry. We still use cavalry. Cavalry is where Jesus was crucified on the cross, the Golgotha, the skull. But since it's such a common word in English, or it used to be anyway, we get it confused with cavalry, which is horses, riding horses in warfare. So the cavalry was still used up through World War I. It wasn't until World War II that we really brought an end to cavalry. But even before that, in the Napoleonic Wars and the Civil War and all these other wars that were fought, it became ranged warfare once we got rifles. So anyway, dodge is your skill for ranged warfare. You're going to want it, no matter what kind of character you're playing. Not having it on Doc is Doc is not a combat-based character. He runs away, he hides and gets away from combat. He does not stay and fight, which would make him really fun to play, I think, personally, but I haven't had a chance yet. Sneak. I do not keep sneak under dexterity. It is a perception skill in West End games. I think it should be there. I understand why he put it in dexterity, because you have to be dexterous to sneak, but I think perception is a much better attribute for it to be under, so I move it under perception. You can leave it here if you want, and I need to make a point here. Sneak is you trying to be invisible, you trying to not be seen. Hide, which you'll notice is the next skill listed here. Hide is the ability of hiding something besides yourself. This is definitely a perception skill. Me and him went back and forth on this a lot. I love THK. I don't even know his real name. Hide is definitely a perception skill. It should not be in dexterity. You are not hiding yourself. You are hiding something else. So it's all about perception. Can you see it? Can you tell whether or not it's there? Hide is opposed by the dexterity, by the perception skill search. So is sneak, for that matter, or spot in his games. I love the spot is for sneak, search is for hide. Anyway, so sneak and hide. He moved them here from perception from West End Games. This is very much a D&D, where D&D keeps these under dex because they don't have a perception. I don't like it. I stand against it. I won't use it. Having said that, whatever works for you guys is great. Like, this allowed me to take points out of perception for my Dinobot character SWAT that I was telling you guys about last time, because I can sneak it. I had a ridiculous high strength and dexterity for that character, so I didn't have to worry about using a high perception to sneak and hide. I could, with my 60 in dexterity, I'm like, I'm super sneaky, which is not right. They should both be under perception. Hide should definitely be under perception. That's where I put him in my game. And remember, if you're trying to hide, you're using sneak. If you're trying to hide something else, like you're a smuggler on a smuggler ship and you don't want anyone to find your contraband, so you're hiding the contraband, that's the hide skill. Sneak is for being invisible, or yourself, moving around, not being seen for yourself. Hide is a different skill. Anyway, I know I'm beating a dead horse. Run. So this is what you do to keep your balance when running. Long distance over difficult terrain. It's not something I've ever improved. That's not true. I had a character with very low dex that I improved his run skill on just so he wouldn't keep falling down. But I didn't improve it at character creation. It's an important skill. It's not something you're going to spend a lot of points on. If you got 3D index or 2D index, you're probably fine. If you're running from a monster in a horror movie, you want a good run skill so you don't keep tripping over nothing. Pickpocket. This skill is a lot of fun. Basically, it's stealing off of people without them noticing. There is an argument that this should also be under perception. You know, your mileage may vary. Martial arts. This is, I don't really care. I don't really care what attribute it's under. Some people put it under strength. Some people put it under dex. THK puts it under dex. I'm fine with it in either place. It is an advanced skill. You need to have a teacher, and you need brawling at 4D and proficiency. He goes into quite a bit of depth into martial arts in a single chapter, so we're not going to spend a lot of time of it here. Brawling damage begins to do more damage than just the strength attribute base. So for every D in martial arts, I don't know. I don't remember the exact ratio. I think it's for every D in martial arts, you do an extra D in strength barehanded for brawling. Yeah, I think that was a rule. We'll go over it when we get there. And I'm going to take a sip of water here. Astrogation. We're under knowledge skills now, so this is your next attribute that he goes into is knowledge. You can do the attributes in any order. We're going to go through them the way he has them set up, because why not? Astrogation. So this is traveling. This is an advanced skill off of knowledge, and I get why he does it that way. I don't do it that way. I mean, an advanced skill off of navigation. Did I say knowledge or navigation? Anyway, but it isn't. He treats it as an advanced skill, so we'll go over that. Basically, this is plotting your way from Earth, from planet to planet. It's interplanetary travel from different solar systems. Yeah. It is not an easy thing to do. I get why he made it an advanced skill. In Star Wars, this is under mechanical because you don't do the calculations yourself. You do them with an astronav computer. The astronav computer does it. You tell it where it wants to go. And yeah, but it is definitely a math skill. If you're trying to do this yourself without a computer, you should. I get why he's making it an advanced skill. I understand that. I don't agree. But yeah, um, yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. I really actually like what he did. And okay, let me clarify this. The reason why I don't like making it an advanced skill is simply it takes up too many character points. So if you're making your character and you want to make an explorer character who or a scholar, you need to put points into an advanced skill to get that advanced skill, even though it detracts from making an all-around character. It takes up too much of your points. That's my opinion. Um, yeah, I don't. I'm not against what he did as strongly as I am as something like putting hide and sneak back under perception where they belong. But I just think in my experience, it has not worked out well. It's too onerous of a requirement to be able to use the skill, just from a gameplay standpoint. As far as lore goes, as far as making the world seem realistic, verisimilitude, he's right. He is 100% right. Astrogation should be an advanced skill as far as verisimilitude goes. If you want the world to feel realistic, leave astrogation as an advanced skill. If you want the world to actually work quickly for your players and, you know, it depends on the game you as the GM want to run. Personally, I don't have a problem with astrogation being a skill that most transformers have, and maybe make it a knowledge, or if not most transformers, then you just I would even making it as something that you need a prerequisite to know, or that astrogation just starts off. Every astrogation roll starts off as a minimum as a difficult roll. That and astrogation, like I would make this actually makes a lot of sense. I should probably write this down. So I would make you've got for your skill tests or checks. It's very easy, easy, moderate, difficult, very difficult, heroic. So I would have astrogation between solar systems as difficult, and then astrogation from one planet to a planet at the edge of the solar system. So going from star to star is a difficult roll, and it gets more complicated from there. But a moderate roll would be going from somewhere like from Mercury to Pluto, or multiple planets would be a moderate roll, going dealing with multiple orbits from the center star, from the soul, from the star itself, from the sun in our case. So going from an easy roll would be going from like Earth to Mars, and a very easy roll would be going from like Earth to the Moon. It still needs to be calculated. So yeah, so Earth to Mars or Venus would be an easy roll. Earth to Mercury or to the asteroid belt or past the asteroid belt to Jupiter, um, those would all be moderate rolls. I would say more than two jumps, more than two orbits would be yeah, even that would be a moderate roll. Difficult would be going from star to star. And I think that would fix the problem. I haven't played this out. Astrogation does not come up very often outside of Star Wars or Star Trek games that I run. But that would be, I got to write that down. You guys are about to witness the creation of a brand new rule modification. Actually, you just did. Transformers rules changes. New Google Doc. Create and share. So first thing I have to do is change the color of the text because it is defaults to black. We're going to go with, what do you guys think, green? I usually just grab green, but let's do orange for this. So very easy is astrogating within within the orbit of the planet, of the orbit, within the solar orbit. There we go. We'll tab in and say example. Earth to the sun. Easy. Uh, Astrogating to the next solar orbit. Example, Earth. Ooh, I should do a colon. If I'm going to do this, I should all look the same. Basic presentation. That's the wrong word. Whatever. Earth to Mars. Venus. High, easy, low, moderate roll could get you from Earth to Mercury. And I spelled 2 wrong. Bop, 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 bop. Bop. Moderate. Astrogating through multiple solar orbits. Example. Mercury to Pluto would be a high, moderate, while Earth to, say, Jupiter. It looks like Jupiter or Jupiter? I think it's Jupiter. Anyway, if I'm wrong, it'll give me a little red thing under it. Is a low, moderate. I'm not putting periods at the end of these sentences. Oh well. Difficult. Astrogating to a nearby from a near. Astrogating between nearby solar systems, star systems. Example, Earth to Alpha Centauri. A low difficult roll. And then very difficult astrogating distances example, I need that colon, I keep forgetting the colon. Cybertron to planet junk. Heroic. Astrogating across the galaxy. Example, Earth to Cybertron. Okay, nice. Untitled document becomes astrogation. We hit that, we pop back over here, we go back to Xformers, we go back to our D6 core rulebook. We head over to page, what were we on, 23? Yeah, a little past that. That's okay. So we just created a new, that's awesome. Astrogation, baby. Now you know exactly how I'd do it. Alien species, this skill represents, so if you want to know about a different alien species, you'd roll that. Cybertronians, Quintessons, Nebulans, yeah. There's a whole bunch in G1, and there's a lot of other ones out there too, from the various Transformers things over the years. Bureaucracy. So one of the differences between D6 and D&D is that role-playing in D6 is integrated right into the design. In D&D, it got added in after the game was created up until version 3.0, where it still feels clunkier to me when I play it. That's just me. So bureaucracy and a lot of these knowledge skills are going to not just impact combat or, accomplishing your goals solo. A lot of these skills are actually where the role playing is, what you know about the world around you, gathering information. So bureaucracy, the more you know about how bureaucracy works, the better off you're going to be. Personally, I don't have a problem combining bureaucracy and business, but they can be two very different skills. Go check out the West End games, how they talk about it. Bureaucracy is more about government. Generally, business is more about like corporations and how they work. You probably won't put a lot of points in either of these at character creation, but depends on the campaign. Bureaucracy would tell you how the Autobot structure works versus how the Decepticon, structure works for their militaries. It could help you understand U.S. government, Sector 7, if you're from the movies, or G.I. Joe and Cobra, whatever. Business, that's pretty straightforward. It also, I use these as determiners for how many contacts you have. Every knowledge skill you have, if I'm getting into the weeds here, getting into the nitty gritty, I would allow you to have contacts based off of your any knowledge skills you've advanced during character creation. Then you got to come up with contacts for them, or I will. Celestial Mechanics. This skill is new for this game. THK actually created this. It's a pretty cool skill. So you know how when we launch rockets to, say, the moon, did you watch Apollo 13? Or any of those? You've got ground control, and they're doing all the calculations. Or Hidden Figures, which was a movie that came out recently about the women who helped get the men on the moon with their math skills. So it takes a lot of skills to get from space. It takes a lot of math to get from space to Earth and vice versa. Yeah, Celestial Mechanics is doing that math, which otherwise you're going to burn up in reentry or die. It's something you need to know about. So yeah, I get a kick out of this. I like the skill. Again, I wouldn't make it an advanced skill. Same arguments as astrogation. But clear weather, clear skies, no heavy winds, easy roll. The harder the weather patterns of the planet, the harder the celestial mechanics roll. That's how I would do it. Intimidation. Characters who are frightening in appearance are skilled in interior. So if you've ever seen, I'm trying to think of a good movie role, because if I had thought about it in advance, I would have come up with something. But you'll see it in movies where they're interrogating somebody. The more I know, the more I can get you to talk about. It's skill under knowledge. It's a good place for it. Some people argue that it should be under perception. You have a decent argument there, but I think it works out pretty well here. It's more than just being like, do this or I'll hurt you. It's an interrogation technique. I might even rename this interrogation. Ooh, that's not a bad idea. Something to think about. Okay, languages. My rule of thumb is the more D you have in languages is an additional one you speak. So if you put like 3D into languages, I allow you to have 3 languages that you speak. If you have 4D in languages, there's 4 languages that you speak. Everybody speaks at least one for the most part. So yeah, you can learn new languages. There's a whole system for how to do that in the D6 rulebook for West End Games Star Wars. It's 10 successful rolls in a new language means you learn the language. Yeah. Most people just speak English in Transformers. That's the way it goes. Gaining fluency in a language. He talks about this. Doobie doobie doo. Law enforcement. This is like businesses and bureaucracy and alien species. It's a knowledge skill. It tells you more about it. It also gives you contacts if you have if you're from that city and you have a lot of knowledge, law enforcement knowledge, you probably have contacts on the police force or the FBI. Or if you're on Cybertron, I called it the Prime Guard, but whatever their police system is. Navigation. This is plotting a course through air, sea, or land. That's the harder it is, the higher you have to roll. Planetary systems. This gives you information about geology. And he gets into more detail, but geology covers air, land, sea, all of it. It is a study of worlds. Scholar. He gets this wrong. No offense, buddy. If you ever watch this one day, THK, know that I hold you in the utmost of respect as an equal. If not a little bit more than an equal, a mentor, a teacher in how to do this sort of changing things up with D6. I had attempted a few things, but this is the first fully formed one I'd seen. And while I have a lot of critiques for you, sir, a lot of critiques, I brought all of them to your face, first off, and we talked about them, or most of them anyway. Some of them have come up after I lost contact with you. But I'd be happy to talk to you about them. We love nerding out over this sort of stuff. Scholar, the skill itself, under West End Games is the ability to do research. So if you're a college student, you are a scholar of sorts. You know how to write a research paper. You know how to read through a number of different resources, papers, books, treatises, essays, glean information out of that, and put it together in a new coherent fashion. It's studying. That's it. That's all scholar is. So if you need to do research on something, like if you're trying to find, if this was an Indiana Jones game and you're trying to find out exactly where the Ark was buried for Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, that would be a scholar skill. So it comes up more often than you would initially think in games, is having to do research to figure out puzzles, to figure out where things are, to do that sort of thing. It's a great skill, highly recommended, awesome RP skill. Not going to use it a lot in combat, but if your games are all combat, then you're playing a different kind of game than I normally play, which is fine. We're going to be talking about it this week on Blam Blam Truckers. Streetwise, this is for criminal activity. This is law enforcement, but for criminal activity. This lets you know about the gangs in an area, what gang basic, not just gangs, but criminal organizations in an area, all that stuff. You're streetwise. You know about the grifters in town. You know what a grift would look like. You know when you're about to be taken. It works. It pairs well with con. This is the knowledge side of it. Survival. I'm going to take a sip of water here. This is a great skill to take. You will use this more often than you think. Survival is your ability to survive in different environments. So you can specialize in like desert terrain. So trying to get through a desert, as a survival person, you would know that cactuses have water in them. So you can consider a cactus a water source. It's knowledge skills like that. It's knowledge of, say, Arctic terrain, where you know that snow is an insulator. So if you actually need to survive the night and you're out in the Arctic or the Antarctic and you have no tent with you, but you have gloves and a shovel, you can dig into the snow and build, a mound, and then dig into that mound, and inside it will get down to 30 degrees, which is a livable temperature. It's not a comfortable temperature, but it is a livable temperature. You can survive the night no matter how cold it gets outside if the snow is thick enough, and it doesn't have to be all that thick. We're talking, 6 inches? If the snow is thick enough, it will protect you from the cold outside. So that would be a survival role. It's also your capacity to build things out of basic materials. We're not talking about building a mansion like Gilligan's Island sort of thing, out of, coconut trees. We're talking about building simple traps, lean-tos, tents, a hammock, weaving rope, all of that stuff would be weaving rope from vines. All of that stuff would be under survival. Okay, great skill, highly recommended. Uh, Not taken often enough by characters, but depending on the game, you may be using it quite a bit. Tactics. So I'm going to read what he has here because I have changed tactics after talking to the guys at Rancor Pit. That's rancorpit.com/forums in particular. Rancor Pit for all your D6 needs, that except for everything on d6holocron.com. Those are your two best D6 websites. I post on Rancor Pit. Love Rancor Pit. Great place to talk about D6 and get some advice. One of those guys came up with a huge suggestion. I'm going to cover that in a minute. The tactic skill represents a character's ability to perform certain deployments, as well as being able to react to an enemy force. For example, a character may specialize in performing sieges, but also have a tactical specialty in understanding the method of operations of the Constructicons. All right. That's all well and good. That's what it's used for. No disagreement there whatsoever. I use tactics as the skill you roll for hold on a second, I'm getting a phone call, and it's my buddy Scam Likely. I use tactics as a skill you roll for initiative. When they say roll initiative, I say roll tactics. So the reason why I do this is it allows you to improve it without having to improve your perception, because normally we use perception for initiative. That's the rule straight out of D6. This is a homebrew rule. You're talking to the bees here. I homebrew a lot of stuff. So your tactics skill in my games, on top of helping you figure out whether or not something is tactically sound or a good idea or a bad idea in combat, tactics also is your initiative roll. It works out very well. I've done it in 3 or 4 games now, and I don't remember who came up with it on Rancor Pit. I'd have to actually look that up. But it is brilliant. It works great. Highly recommend you try it. But again, as long as you're having fun playing the game, play the game your way. Willpower. I use willpower to resist force powers. You're supposed to use perception under D6 rules, under West End games. I use it to... I don't do that. I use willpower. That actually works a lot better. Willpower also, it is a catch-all. If you're out of stamina, but you make a very high willpower roll, you can keep going. You can resist temptation, pain, fear, in order to persevere. In my superhero game, willpower is what is used to roll against psionic attacks. It is a useful skill to have. In my games, not so much in other people's games. Your mileage may vary. Have fun. Mechanical skills. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Here we go. Mechanical skills are the skills you use to operate machinery. It's a little bit more than that, but we're going to start there. Since you are playing a transformer and you transform into a machinery, yes, I said it that way on purpose, you may want to have some mechanical skills. You may not. You may be playing a Dinobot or a Beast Former of some sort. You may be playing a Beast Wars game and turn into a spider, whatever. In that case, you may want to forego your mechanical skills altogether and put 1D in the attribute and not improve anything. But if you are a normal transformer turning into a car or a jet or a, helicopter or a dump truck or a construction vehicle or whatever you're turning into, van, artillery piece, a gun, a boombox, you're going to want some mechanical skills, less so with the boombox. So here they are. Armor weapons. So if you're in a power suit, if you're a human in a power suit, or you're a transformer using weapons in a power suit, like Ultra Magnus, those weapons are controlled and fired with a mechanical skill. Armor weapons. Auto evasion operation. You're driving a car. I just call this auto, or automobile, or car. So it's your driving skill. But driving is a term that is actually used for most mechanical things. You drive boats. Did you know that? A motorboat is driven. So, yeah, you drive cars, but I just call this auto or automobile or car. Um, if you're turning into a car, you may want to have some skill in car. Both Grunt and Doc do not have many skills in auto or car in auto evasion / operations, making them awful drivers, which I play up for laughs. Beast riding. This is the one of the few skills that is not directly mechanically based. I think this is a good place for it. Some people have argued it should be in perception. I'm like, whatever. If my whole player group says it should all be under perception, I'll move it there. But otherwise, it stays where it started at, under mechanical. I'm not dying on this particular hill. I've died on a few hills already. So yeah, notice how he says specializations: horses, Dinobots. I love that. This is also beast mastery, like teaching animals is also here. The argument that that should be under perception is a much stronger argument. I don't really care. It doesn't come up much in my games. If it did, I'd probably have a stronger opinion on it. If it does in your game and you're like, we're going to put that under perception because it makes more sense. Great. Go for it. Have a blast. As long as you're having fun, you're doing it right. I doubt anyone will come by and watch you playing a game that's out of print, Star Wars D6, or, watch you playing this Transformers game and give you a ration of poop about it because, oh, you're doing it wrong. This game was never printed in the first place. It's a complete homebrew. Enjoy yourself. Vehicle weapons. So these are weapons on vehicles. If you're a robot who turns into a vehicle, you're going to be using this skill. This is like, I wouldn't say tank cannons. I think that goes under artillery more, but, whatever. So other guns on vehicles, maybe tank cannons, I don't know. I think maybe artillery is a different skill, whatever. Pick one. Tell them to roll. Pick a difficulty and tell your character to roll. Anyway, he goes into a little bit of a question here. So if you've got guns on your car, like James Bond, you would use this skill, vehicle weapons. I don't know if a tank main cannon is vehicle weapons, but if you've got a machine gun on the top of the tank, that would be a vehicle weapon. Fighter jets. Most of their attacks would be under vehicle weapons. I don't know if he has a separate skill for missile attacks. I wouldn't, but that's just me. I like to trim things down. Artillery. This is designed for doing long distance damage. You're not actually aiming at the target directly through sights, but you're using coordinates to fire at targets and mathematics and arcs and all that stuff. Yeah. Makes sense. It takes 3 or 4 people to run a single piece of artillery. You got the loader, you got the aimer, you're figuring out your range, whether it's a cannon or a missile system, but whatever. If you've got artillery in your transform mode, or you're human or a class 1 trying to operate artillery, that's fine. Ground combat, vehicle evasion operation. So it is a ground combat vehicle. So this would not be a car, this would be a tank or an armored personnel carrier or mobile artillery or a mobile missile launcher. Basically, I would have said tracked vehicles, but they're not all tracked. But think of it that. That's an easy way to think of it. It's driving a tracked vehicle, more or less. Mostly. Yeah. Helo. Operating a helicopter. If you turn into a helicopter, you might want this skill. Jet evasion operation. Yeah, he's calling them all evasion operation. It's also your dodge. That's why evasion is in there. So if you're flying a jet or you turn into a jet, you're going to want this skill. Power armor, evasion and operation. So if you're wearing an exosuit as a human, or again, Ultra Magnus is the only example coming to mind from Transformers who wear the equivalent of an exosuit. Though Power Master Optimus Prime does too, now that I'm thinking about it. Power Master Optimus Prime. How geekily specific that is. Super Ginra. Anyway, Ginrai, however you pronounce it. Those wearing exosuits would use this skill to operate. So basically moving in your exosuit, moving in your extra armor. High technology. So a high-tech evasion operation. High technology evasion operation. So if you turn into an advanced craft like Cosmos does, you're going to need this skill. He turns into a flying saucer. If you're trying to fly, so does Brainstorm. Brainstorm turns into a rocket ship of some sort or a Cybertronian spacecraft, a space superiority fighter. Basically, it's spacecraft. I can't think of anything else that would hit the high technology off the top of my head, but there you go. Vehicle sensors. So this should be a tool. I'm not sure if it is or not, your sensors package. But if you've got sensors aboard a ship, like if you're an Autobot on one of the shuttles or the Ark or whatever, this would be your sensors. I'm saying it Spock style. Sensors. Yeah, your ability to get a reading off of sensors. And on a ship, in a modern example, it would be radar or night vision or infrared on a, what are those things called? Fighter jets. Modern fighter jets have incredible sensor arrays. And we really do call them that, believe it or not. But it's your radar, it's your, again, night vision, your infrared, all of that stuff. Sonar on a submarine are all forms of sensors. Vehicle communications. This is basically running the radio. If you've got an internal radio, if you've got a communication array built into you as a transformer like Soundwave, this would be the skill you would use. Yeah. Doobie-doo. Perception. Oh, I forgot about this with astrogation. Under knowledge, where is it? Under knowledge. Astrogation is also the skill we'd use to operate a space bridge. Bear that in mind if you're a space bridge operator. Covered all these wonderful, wonderful skills. Doobie. Now we're into perception. Remember, I would put both sneak and hide back here under perception. I already talked and ranted about that enough. Bargain. Haggling. Okay? When you're talking to a merchant and you want to change the price or make a deal, if you're talking to, in modern America, this is often seen when buying a car. Well, I can't go that high. Can you go this low? What can you do for me? What can you work out here? I can't go that high. I can do this much. Back and forth. Yeah. It's basic bargaining. The better your roll, the better you do. Command. Okay. Holy pants. I have a love-hate relationship with this skill. I keep getting players who think that it says command NPC. So first off, you can't use it on players. But you can't just go around giving people commands and expect them to follow you. Most people won't. If you're walking down the street and somebody tells you to go get them a glass of water, you're probably going to get a rude response, because that's pretty rude to begin with. Command is generally used to tell someone else what to do who has a reason to listen to you. Like when a boss gives you, an assignment at work, they're giving, this would be the skill to use. When you're in the military, like the Autobot Army or the Decepticon Army, or G.I. Joe or Cobra, and your superior officer gives you a command to you, that's going to be a very easy command roll. They say, hey, boot. Hey, guy in charge of folding flags, go fold a flag. Okay. Aye, aye, sir. Sir, yes, sir. Whatever. That is what command is for. Commanding someone outside of that, like you're walking down the street and you command someone to get you a glass of water, you need a very high command skill to pull that off. That is a very difficult role. Someone who has no reason to listen to you. That's what it's for. It's not from making you king of the world all of a sudden. I've had people take this skill so many times and think they could just walk in and tell people what to do and they wouldn't question, I don't know you. Why am I listening to you? All of that stuff's going to come up, or it should if you're, you know, good GM. If you're posing now, if you got your con going, which is the very next skill, look, con, the very next skill. You got your con going, and you've disguised yourself as an officer in the military, and then you give that's going to affect, and you give a you're an officer and you give an enlisted person an order. They're going to see your rank. That's going to add to your command skill, and that's going to be modifiers on the roll. That makes a lot of sense. But when I hear people trying to use command out of nowhere, I'm like, that's not how it, even if you got a professional level of command, unless they think you have a reason to be a person of authority, they're not going to listen to you. Anyway, rant over. Con is the next skill. Con is one of my favorite skills. Disguise is under con. And it is just a great skill to have and use and roleplay with. Highly recommended to take. You never know what you can talk your way out of with a good con roll. And ridiculous as what you come up with is, a good con roll can make it work. You're talking someone, it's also disguises are under con. I have taken con over sneak to bluff my way through situations, and you'd be surprised how often it works. Search, used to find stuff. That's pretty much it. Spot should be next, but it's not. He created the spot skill. The first person I saw ever create the spot skill for D6. So THK, mad props for that. When you're looking for something, you use search. Forgery, you're making fake documents or altering real documents. Yes, even electronic documents. Gambling, because it's under perception. The reason why this is under perception instead of technical is because perception is where you would, you're looking at it to look and see if it's real. And that's basically what you're doing with an ID is checking. You're using your perception to make sure it looks and feels and smells real. Gambling. We have played with this so many times. I use it. We use it in the game quite a bit. Yeah. I don't have a great system for it. We've tried a few. It comes up more in Star Wars than it does in Transformers, but there is historical precedent. Season 2, G1, the game, the TV show, the cartoon. Anyway, moving on. Spot. Again, THK created this. I think he stole it from another, or was inspired by another gaming system. It is a perception skill used to locate movement or detect ambush within the character's surroundings. Normally we just do a perception check until he created the spot skill. Since I found spot, I've been using spot in all of my games, all of my D6 games. So yeah, often referred to as the easily improvable perception check. It is a great skill. I'm surprised they didn't put it into D6. It is so obvious. It should be in, West End Games D6 Star Wars. First, second editions, even the revised and expanded, do not have spot. But they should. It's a great skill. It works out great. Very well balanced. Just an awesome thing. Scan, another skill you won't find in D6. So it's used to detect life signs and statistics. Scan is a lot like vehicle sensors in what do you call it? Under mechanical, but with scan, you're not using necessarily your eyes. You are using an in-depth machine of some sort, which some Transformers have equipment like that, macro binoculars, X-ray specs, stuff like that. So it's used to do more than just get a visual perception, and you need the tools, the gear, to be able to do a scan. But it would be here. He has it under perception. I don't know if I'd have it under perception or mechanical, but I like it, so we're keeping it. It's fine right here. It works out here. Yeah. Investigation. I'm tempted to make this an advanced skill under knowledge, but it's fine where it's at. You're gathering information on a target or dig for obscure information about it. Or, yeah, I read that wrong. I threw in a comma that wasn't there. Used to gather information on a target or dig for obscure information about an area. Yeah. If you're running a crime-based game, investigation is going to come up a lot. If you're doing research, if you're trying to solve a mystery, you're going to be using investigation a lot. It pairs up with scholar. Investigate is more about seeing what's in the room and putting all those details together. It's like being Sherlock Holmes. Scholar is going and writing a research paper or digging up stuff in a library. Investigation is digging up stuff at a crime scene, or basically this is Sherlock Holmes bread and butter. I really think it should be under knowledge, but again, I'm not dying on that hill. Persuasion. This is your way of talking someone into doing something they don't necessarily want to do, or convincing. Persuasion should be used mostly on NPCs, not on other player characters. Strength skills. Let me take another sip of water here. How long have we been doing this for? Over an hour. I really got to cut this, but I want to get through all the skills in one session. Brawling is combat with your hands. It is non-weapon combat. You can specialize in wrestling. You can specialize in bar fighting, and barroom brawling, boxing, street fighting. Yeah, it is a prerequisite. It is the prerequisite to martial arts. It is all hand-to-hand combat is brawling. Lifting, the ability to lift stuff. He gets into quite a bit of detail on this and how heavy you are, and yeah, not worried about it. Stamina. You only have so much oomph. So once you've been in combat for 10 rounds, when we hit round 10 of combat, I start making people do stamina checks. If it's heavy combat, or if you've been, over long term trying to push something up a hill or whatever, or working hard all day, or we're in a survival situation like, again, a desert or a jungle, stuff like that. Anyway, pretty self-explanatory. Any questions, leave them in the comments section down below, and I will try and answer them. Swimming, your ability to swim. Climb, jump, your ability to climb, jump. Strength has a lot of uses. Strength is also what we use for damage rolls, what we've talked about that in previous videos. And those are the 5. Yes, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 skills under strength. Yeah, climbing and jumping is just one skill. They pared it down. Yeah, not much more to say. Technical skills. The higher the roll, the better you do. Now we're into the final attribute, technical skills. This is also your repair section. This is also your medical section. So medical skills and repair skills and a few others like demolitions and security, which make a lot of sense being here, will all be in this category. If you want to be the fix-it guy in your team, you want a high technical skill. That's basically... Doc is not built the way you would expect him to be built. Anyway, demolitions. This skill represents the knowledge to place charges and blow stuff up. It's used in combat occasionally, but more often than not, it is used outside of combat to plan a demolition. If you want to blow up a tank with a mine, setting the mine is demolitions. If you want to blow up a tank with a rocket launcher, then that would be under heavy weapons, under dexterity. So there you go. Energy weapon repair, it's fixing and improving. So we'll get to this in a second. With a repair skill, you can also improve a weapon or whatever it is you're repairing. So if energy weapons, if you wanted to make your weapon more powerful by +1, you take a 4D weapon and turn it into a 4D +1 weapon. That would be under the repair skill, the appropriate repair skill. Engineering, An advanced skill that is the foundation of the construction and repair of most advanced technical skills. Engineering, like I talked about, is not only an advanced skill, it is one that is used in the West End game system to build your own stuff. So if you want to design your own weapon, if you want to design your own base, your hideout or stronghold, if you want to design your own vehicle, like the Batmobile or whatever, you would need engineering, which is an advanced skill, to do that. Conventional weapon repair, again, firearms. First aid. First aid works on both both fleshlings and robots. So humans and Cybertronians both use first aid. I would use first aid as the base for robotics, which he does not. Next skill, robotics. Robotics is the medicine skill for Transformers and other robots. Yeah. So instead of using the advanced skill medicine, which is basically doctoring, a robot doctor uses robotics. Simple enough. Medicine. If you want to fix up humans, you need medicine skill, which is doctoring for humans or other fleshlings like Nebulones. Conventional vehicle repair. Again, this is fixing cars and stuff like that. High technology vehicle repair, fixing spaceships. Primitive construction. I would get rid of this skill because it's covered by survival, but to each their own. Building things out of the material around you, like trees and rocks and such. Again, I would put this under survival for the most part, under knowledge. But your mileage may vary. If this works for you, keep doing it. Security, lock picking, and lock setting. This skill is used in efforts of bypassing physical security. The higher the dice roll, the more knowledge a character has in getting past blast doors, security cameras, or other security measures. There's a fine line between security and computer operation repair. Because, what if it's an electronic lock? Beating an electronic lock is under security. Hacking into a computer system is under computer operations and repair. If you're an infiltration expert, thief, you're going to want a high security skill. Computer operation and repair. This isn't just building computers, it's also hacking and whatnot. Fun skill to have. It's writing computer programs. It's coming up with defenses, computer defenses, getting through computer defenses. Yeah. If you're a hacker, you're probably going to have both of these two skills because you need to get it. A lot of times, if the system is offline or just the important parts are not accessible through the internet, you're going to need to get on site to actually do your hacking. And that's it. We are done. We've gone over an hour. My voice is tired. I could probably give some examples of when we've done hacking in various games, but I'm going to not because we are at 1 hour and 13 minutes. I'm going to say goodbye, guys, and almost done with chapter 2. Almost. Let's take a look at chapter. Oh man, I hit the wrong button. Where were we? 30-ish? A little past. So the next part of chapter 2 is special abilities. Wow, that's going to take a while. That is going to take a while. So yeah, we're going to call it. I hope you guys have a great day. Always love talking to you. Love geeking out with you guys on the internet. And for all you Transformers out there, remember this is More Than Meets the Eye. And Autobots, transform and roll out. Keep on trucking, you blam truckers.